Greetings, everyone. My name is Nobukhosi Zulu, and I'm a legal consultant with 4SA. And this week, we're going to have a conversation with 4SA's head of legal, Liesl Pretorius. Hi, Liesl.
Good day, Nobukhosi and our viewers.
Yes, I'm excited to enter into a conversation with Liesl today because we're going to talk about the latest developments on the marriage bill. And this is one bill that's been going on for a little while, so I hope you've been following up. But Liesl is going to give us some updates. So to start us off, Liesl, can you provide us with a quick recap on the marriage bill?
So, the purpose of the marriage bill, let's start with that. The purpose of the marriage bill is to consolidate, to simplify our very fragmented marriage law system in South Africa, because at the moment we have no less than three acts. We have the Marriage Act of 1961, we have the Civil Union Act, and we have the Customary Marriages Act. And they deal with different types and arrangements of marriages. And what is important to also note is that in this current system, certain religious marriages according to religious rites, and we're talking about specifically Hindu marriages and Muslim marriages, are not recognized, which is very problematic. So, to address these issues, the Department of Home Affairs started a very extensive public engagement process. They had a green paper and after public consultation, and 4SA participated in that process. They developed and published a white paper on marriages in South Africa. And a white paper is a document that sets the official government policy position. And then, based on the white paper, the department compiled a bill called a draft bill on marriages, and again invited written submissions, and 4SA and many other stakeholders participated in that process. And that all eventually led to a bill being introduced in Parliament called the Marriage Bill. That was in December 2023. And the Marriage Bill at the moment is before the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs. That's a parliamentary committee within the National Assembly, the first house. They have invited written submissions because they opened the bill for public comment, and they're also currently busy with the public hearing process, which gives the public another opportunity to make oral submissions to the committee.
Thanks. That's good. So what is it for SA's view on the marriage bill right now as it stands? What's good with it and what's bad with it?
Well, I think from our position, it's overall a good bill, and maybe I should explain our position. Our position is neutral because as an organization, we are faith neutral and we are politically neutral, and we're also doctrinally neutral. So we look at the broad right to freedom of religion of everyone in South Africa, which is your right to believe and also your right not to believe. So from that viewpoint, we think it's overall a very good bill because it recognizes religious marriages, like I mentioned, specifically Muslim marriages, marriage according to Hindu rites, or other types of religious marriages who might also not be recognized. And it will recognize all those marriages that were entered into before, the bill, when it's eventually enacted and comes into force, it'll recognize them, also recognize those marriages going forward, subject to minimal requirements that we think are very reasonable, that are very fair. It has to do with, consent and age and witnesses, things like that, because you don't want people being forced into marriage. You want to know that the person is of the age and the mental capacity that they can actually consent to the marriage, that they are witnesses, so we don't have fake marriages and things like that. And that's very important. We think about the impact on spouses and children in those marriages. If a marriage is not recognized and the marriage dissolves due to death or divorce, that has a very, very bad impact on a surviving spouse or a divorced spouse and the children, if you're thinking about succession or maintenance, etc. What this bill also does is that it expressly recognizes and protects religious marriage officers. So we're talking about the right of a religious marriage officer. This is a pastor, an imam, a rabbi, a priest, etc. They cannot be forced to solemnize any marriage that does not accord with their religious views, their moral values in terms of the tenets of their beliefs, the doctrines of their faith, and their particular religious, organization, church, mosque, synagogue, temple that they belong to. That's very important to protect religious freedom, and it's a very important improvement because the draft bill, the bill's version that was before the department, did not have that in, but the bill that's before Parliament has that in. And in our comments on the draft bill, we said to the department, but why are you leaving this out? And the department said, no, the intention is not that this protection should be taken away, because this protection exists in our existing Marriage Act. And we said, well, you can't just say that's your intention, that this right of religious marriage officers should remain protected. It has to be there expressly, because if you suddenly leave something out that was in the previous act, it might create the wrong impression. So that's positive. Also, there's an expansion of the categories of people who can become marriage officers. So anybody who holds a position of authority within a cultural or secular organization or religious organization, but this is the expansion, the cultural and the secular organizations, or some traditional council, including the Khoisan Council, for example, they can become a designated marriage officers. And from a faith neutral perspective, this is a positive development, because this means that every grouping and a religious association and creed, they can have their own marriage officers that solemnize marriages according to what their beliefs are about marriage, and what their practices are. So that limits also the ability of somebody to say, but this person who's not of my faith or not of my denomination must be forced to solemnize my marriage. Every group should be able to have their own officers, and that's very democratic, that approach. Then there are still some problematic aspects to the marriage bill, primarily two. The first one concerns the civil marriage officer. So this is a person who's a marriage officer due to an employment position that they hold, typically a person employed by the Department of Home Affairs or a magistrate. There are others as well, but those are the two main categories. The bill does not recognize any right to conscientious objection. Now, currently, civil marriage officers don't have the right to conscientious objection anymore, because the Civil Union Act was amended to take that away. And then there's also the inadvertent criminalization of religious leaders who are not marriage officers. And maybe I should just explain a little bit more about what we mean here. This is a situation, for example, say you're in a church and you've got a pastor, and this is the pastor that you know and you have a good relationship with, and you want this pastor to do the sermon at your wedding ceremony. But this pastor is not a designated marriage officer. So this pastor cannot legally marry you. But you know that, and the pastor knows that, and nobody's pretending, that the pastor is a designated marriage officer. So then what happens is the pastor does the sermon, but another person who is a designated marriage officer, it can be another pastor, can be a civil kind of marriage officer. They come and they do the legal part, the legal questions and the filling in of the register. Or the couple maybe goes to Home Affairs, the previous day or so, or another day, and get their marriage, they officiated the legal aspect. The way that the bill is worded, this pastor could be criminalized inadvertently. We don't think that's the intention of Home Affairs at all. So yeah, those are the two concerns. And again, we have a faith neutral position, but we do recognize that different persons of faith, persons of particular religious communities might have additional concerns over and above our concerns. Concerns stemming from their views on marriage, coming from their religious background, their doctrines, and of course, this is why we have public participation, and we would encourage everyone to participate in the public the participation process, because that's grassroots democracy in action.
Excellent. And that's good. So, part of the way in which we engage is through public participation. But maybe you can speak to us more detail. So, like, what does 4SA plan to do to address the more problematic aspects of the bill and to champion the good ones, to make sure that the final act that comes out is a product that's suitable for South Africa?
Well, we have submitted written submissions to Parliament, and we'll also do oral submissions. We plan to participate in the provincial public hearings, the Wicked ones, because that's where we're based, and also the national ones that will be before Parliament next year. And of course, the good ones we will, emphasize and recommend strongly, urge the committee to keep the good ones in, because this bill is still open. They can amend any clause potentially. So we will say, please, the good ones, keeps them in, the recognition of religious marriages, the protection of religious marriage officers, the expansion of the categories. With the two problematic aspects, the one about the inadvertent criminalization of religious leaders who aren't marriage officers, we have a suggestion that just to tighten the text, just clarify, just rephrase the text of those clauses of the bill a bit, so it's clear and that doesn't slip in. When it comes to the civil marriage offices, we will recommend that the committee looks at the recommendations in the white paper. The white paper in marriage has actually a very good recommendation in this regard, or mentions this possible very practical solution, and it is to distinguish between the solemnization aspect of a marriage ceremony, which can have religious overtones or religious aspects, and it's very ceremonial, from the registration aspect, which is administrative, which is legal. If registering a marriage, if a marriage officer, is a civil marriage officer, does not solemnize a marriage, but only register a marriage, it's kind of like when you register a birth or a death. It's a very administrative legal function. So in that way, it will protect the religious freedom rights of the civil marriage officers, because we don't leave our religious freedom behind at home when we go to work in the morning. But at the same time, that will enable the state to provide equal service delivery to all South Africans who are legally allowed to get married in South Africa, because the state cannot discriminate unfairly. And we are in a constitutional framework that recognizes that we are in a diverse society where everybody has human dignity and everybody is equal before the law. And the state has the obligation to fulfill that and balance the democratic rights of everyone. So we think that that could be a practical and very democratic solution.
So good. And how can members of the public have their say on the marriage bill?
I think, first of all, to have your say in the marriage bill, it's good to familiarize yourself with the issues. And on our website, we have recently published a marriage bill article, where viewers can go and they can read the article, and then they'll find out a bit more about the issues. And so that's a good place to start. And also then to participate, once you have this knowledge and you've gone through it and you've gone through the bill, and you have identified which issues stand out to you, because you might have similar concerns or different concerns than we have. But then you can participate in the public hearings. Now, the public hearings kicked off in Gauteng, the provincial ones. Those were held on the 18th and 19th of November. And public hearings will continue next year, starting from what we've last heard in KwaZulu-Natal, and then some other provinces. And there will also be national hearings at Parliament. So I think the important thing is subscribe to our news alerts, follow us on social media, because when we get updates about this, for example, we have a 4SA WhatsApp broadcast group. We send out communication via our different communication channels, alerting people, for example, the public hearings for this province will take place on these dates, and these are the venues, because this is the information we've received from Parliament. So I think that is a good place to start.
Okay, thank you so much for that update, Liesl. And just listening to the update on this marriage bill, it's such a testimony of the amazing work that 4SA has done over the years and will continue to do by the grace of God. And this year, 4SA is 10 years old, which is an amazing milestone to reach in the fight for faith and freedom. And we are celebrating a decade of standing for faith and freedom in South Africa. And we've launched a 4SA Victory Series. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit, what can we expect from the series and where can we access it?
So yes, we are very good, and we know that we don't do it on our own strength. And we just want to say thank you to all our supporters, and we look forward to another 10 years. So where can you find the videos? We are releasing the videos on our YouTube channel. We have a Victory Series list, so you can go there and see the videos that have been released in the latest one. We will also send out alerts on our Facebook page. And we send out an emailer every Friday with a new video. So that's why, go to our websites and subscribe to our email. We'll get that update. So the videos, they look, as you said, various victories, things that we can celebrate. We chose 15 victories. I think there are more, but, you have to limit it, I guess. And we chose 15. And it just looks at various things, how we defeated lockdown discrimination. Viewers might recall, a time during lockdown where casinos and gyms were allowed to be open, but you were not allowed to go to church. And obviously, our suggestion was, this is unfair. This is unfair discrimination. Allow people to attend church subject to the same safety precautions in order that, we protect everyone. We defended free speech of a person who converted to different faith, and he was giving his testimony in public, and members of the faith group to which he previously belonged, accused him of hate speech, and they dragged him to court, and we could defend him, his freedom to express his religion. And interestingly enough, that victory is also a victory actually for the people, in a way that dragged him to court, because if they wanted to do the same thing, their right to religious expression would also be protected. We look at how we fought ideological indoctrination in schools, something that is continuing, protecting parental rights, parents' rights to raise their children only according to their own faith and moral values, which is very important. We looked at also prevented church censorship and protected church autonomy. That's the ability of churches to regulate their own religious affairs, their doctrinal issues, without interference from outside. So various of these victories. Yes, and we are grateful for it. And we, like, as I say, we look forward to the next 10 years.
Yeah, and I mean, you're right. There've been some amazing things. Like, some of my favorite is the way in which 4SA worked hard to stop the forced rollout of CSC in schools, keeping the options right at the hands of parents, and allowing people to be able to engage with that content in a manner that they see as best fit for their children. And the work that you did this year just around the spy bill and the threats that existed to religious freedom. So there's a lot of exciting victories, and I really encourage everyone to just go and check it out, subscribe to the news alerts, follow the social media websites, and just stay on top to understand. In order to see where we're going, it's great to see where we've been, to understand the impact of the work. I am constantly overwhelmed with how impactful the work that 4SA has done over the years is. And so we know that where people can go if they want more information for 4SA to understand the work, the issues, and the developments affecting religious freedom in South Africa, like we've repeatedly said, they can visit our website, our social media, and we encourage everybody to go on there and see how they can give and partner with us as well to keep us standing strong in the fight for faith and freedom. Liesl, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for all the good work that you've been doing.
Thank you, Nobukhosi, and thank you also to you and the good work that you are doing as a valuable member of the team.
This is Michael Swain of 4SA. Remember to like and share this video, and then click on the subscribe button to make sure that you never miss our video updates on vital religious freedom issues.